Hello and welcome to PPMA TV, and I'm delighted to welcome Tom Crawford from LRS. Great to have you here, Tom, and I know you've just finished your keynote speech. Your speech focused on teamwork and growth mindset, and I'm just wondering that for those that don't necessarily know much about that, if you can provide some insight to that.
Yeah, it's a value that we hold really dear at LRS. So the brand, as you know, has been around for decades. Ribena has been around, for example, for the last 70 years. But in order to sustain the business into the next century, we're just custodians of it now. What we're looking for is real innovation from within. So as part of that, we're giving everyone on the sites, in the factory, in the head office, etc. We're just giving them the opportunity to make contributions and become part of the team. So we're driving like a growth mindset mentality and then a teamwork agenda that the guys on site know how to make it better. They know what we can do, what's possible, much better than anybody else sat in an office. So, yeah, that's our ambition. That's how we choose to grow the brand. And
there is a big push, of course, isn't there, for companies, manufacturing companies of particularly drinks and food-related products, for them to become healthy, and that, of course, drives an element of innovation, or a lot of innovation. How does that sort of cross-pollinate on the basis of actually how you recruit people?
So when we recruit people, or when we, to be honest, people don't really leave the business. So one of my project managers left last week after 40 years in the business, and that is not unusual. People come to the business and they stay there. But when we are recruiting, or when we're looking to develop from within, what we tend to focus on is what is the wills? Where have you got that positive mindset? Have you got that growth mindset? Because if people have the basic technical skills, the basic specialist skills, we can train that, we can develop that into them, we can invest in it. But that positive growth mindset, it comes from within. It can be developed, but most of it comes from within.
LRS is a global company. Obviously, recently had the add-on of Suntory recently. And as a result of that, clearly a huge number of employees, and it's often said that when you're in a bigger organisation, people just see themselves as a number, and that's very difficult, isn't it, to be able to recognise teams, but also recognise people individually.
Yeah, very definitely, and yet you have to focus on it. So to get around that side of things, we very much focus on like personal development plans, and that's very different from your standard objectives. So we all have our business objectives. We have to do it. We're all in business to make money and contribute to the pot to keep growing at the end of the day. But 50% of the time that we invest into that is just for people's personal development and how they grow. And we have various models, 70% on the job, up to the 10% where people are just, we invest in specific courses to take the business elsewhere. But yeah, it's certainly the most generous training and investment company I've ever worked for.
Where do you see the common pitfalls in terms of that sort of collaborative element and inspiring young people to be better and, if you like, entrepreneurs in their own right?
The potential pitfalls are, it's very, very difficult and to sustain it. You can achieve a great system, and that is the easier thing to do. The difficult part with any great system is sustain it over long periods of time, and you can lose it quite quickly. So for us, the investment in the team, investment in the management team specifically, but then the day-to-day skills and opportunities for cross-pollination across roles. So for example, the people who work in the factory might have worked in the same area of the factory for 10, 12, 15 years. Others will say, no, right, I want to do a couple of years here and then I want to move off. So we give people the opportunity to develop within the business rather than having to go outside the business.
And that in itself obviously creates the ability to retain people, because you're keeping people interested, aren't you? It's you're keeping them within the same family, but an opportunity to do something different.
Yeah, staff turnover for us in the factory is next to nil. It's, it is a fantastic place to work. We do pay better than others, but you have to do that to retain. That is part of the overall package. It's not the only part of the package, but it's part of the overall package to retain the right people with the right skills and wills on site.
What's the ambition of the business with when you take all that into account?
I mean, there's lots of ambitions and things that obviously I can't talk about on tape because they're we're NDA'd up for those, but yeah, we want to keep growing the brand. People have said it before me, and I find it a bit strange when I first joined the business. I've only been there 3.5 years, but People say that, we are the custodians of it. The amount of generations that have come through the site since, 1947 when it was formed, and people say, oh, my grandparents worked here, and, my aunts and uncles and parents and everything else. And it's just that flow through. We're involved in the local community. We want to keep doing that, but we want to, if we don't continue to innovate and grow the brand, we won't be the custodians. It'll eventually, somebody else will come in and do it better than us.
And if there's one thing that you would want PPMA members attending today's PPMA conference away with them, what would that be?
Just invest in the people. People have to have the right skills, or you can invest in those skills. But for years, not just for LRS, but for the other businesses I work for, we spent hundreds of millions of pounds over the years. The machinery is just a big lump of metal if you don't have the right people with the right desires and attitudes that want to get the best out of it, really. Some of the presentations today that were showing fantastic examples about, automation, not just, not doing away with jobs, but actually creating more jobs and more opportunities in other parts of the UK. So for me, continue to innovate and create the machinery that we want to put into our plants, across all areas of industry in the UK, but also think about the training packages and the development of the end user, the people that are going to be driving that machine on a day-to-day basis, or have to maintain it, or clean it, whatever. Consider the people.
Well, that's great advice, I'm sure, for any member and non-member attending today's PPMA conference, and I appreciate your time. Thank you very much, Tom.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Lovely.